The sun was beginning its slow descent, casting long shadows across the barren plains, when the three Apache women rode with purposeful grace, their horses kicking up small clouds of dust with each stride. Their eyes, sharp and vigilant, scanned the horizon, alert for any sign of danger or movement. Suddenly, one of them let out a sharp gasp, pointing toward a figure sprawled motionless near a jagged outcrop of rock. The women urged their horses forward, hearts pounding, and discovered a cowboy, blood seeping from a deep wound on his shoulder, his face pale and drawn in pain. The eldest of the three, her eyes steady and knowing, whispered something to the others, a reminder of the sacred law that guided their lives. By the traditions of their people, a wounded outsider discovered by Apache, women could not be abandoned. The law demanded that he be cared for, tended, and eventually bound to them. A heavy weight settled over the group as they realized the implications. This cowboy, now at their mercy, would be theirs by duty, by ritual, by law. Gently they lifted him onto a makeshift stretcher, their movements precise and careful, speaking little, letting the quiet crackle of tension fill the space between them. They rode to their hidden camp, a secluded haven known only to their people and protected by the spirits of the land. The cowboy groaned, trying to shift, but they silenced him with gentle hands and steady voices. "Rest," one murmured. "You are safe now." As the sun disappeared behind the horizon, the campfire came alive, casting flickering shadows across their faces. They set about cleaning and dressing his wound, using herbs and poultices, their movements guided by knowledge passed down through generations. The cowboy lay back, overwhelmed, helpless in their care, yet there was no malice in their eyes, only solemn commitment to the law that bound them. Hours passed, and the fire's glow reflected in the three women's eyes, resolute and unyielding. The cowboy's mind raced, trying to understand the strange, unyielding power of this law, this destiny he could not escape. He realized that his survival depended entirely on their goodwill and that, by the customs of their people, the course of his life had irrevocably changed. The women exchanged a silent glance, a pact unspoken but understood. They would nurse him back to health, but the sacred law had already decided his fate. Tomorrow and every day after, he would be bound to them, not only in body but in destiny, in duty, and in a law older than the plains themselves. Morning light filtered through the dense canopy of trees surrounding the hidden camp, casting dappled patterns on the ground as the cowboy slowly stirred. His body ached from the wound, each movement a reminder of how completely vulnerable he had become in the hands of the three Apache women. He tried to rise, but the eldest laid a steady hand on his shoulder, forcing him back onto the soft bed of furs. "Rest," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You are safe here, and that is all that matters for now." He blinked up at her, confusion and frustration warring in his chest. Why are you helping me?" he asked, his voice hoarse. The eldest's gaze met his, unwavering and serious. "Because the law chooses, not you," she replied softly. "You were found wounded, and it is our duty to care for you. That is enough." He struggled to comprehend the words, the weight of them pressing down like the heat of the sun on the plains. By this law, his life was no longer entirely his own. Over the next days, the cowboy was drawn into their world in ways he could never have anticipated. The women taught him the rituals of their tribe, the dances, the songs, and the sacred practices that had been passed down for generations. He observed them moving gracefully through the camp, their eyes sharp, their movements purposeful. He learned how they prepared meals from the land, how they read the signs of nature, and how their bond with one another was deeper than any law he had known. Despite his confusion and fear, there were moments of tenderness. The women shared stories of their lives, of love and loss, of battles fought and victories earned. Slowly he began to see them not merely as keepers of law, but as people of strength, intelligence, and profound loyalty. At night, under a sky blanketed with stars, the eldest would sit beside him, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. "Tonight, as our law dictates, you sleep with us," she whispered. "You will learn the ways of the Apache. You will understand what it means to belong." He shivered, torn between fear and fascination. The sacred law had claimed him, yes, but there was something in their presence, in the steady rhythm of their lives, that stirred a strange mixture of curiosity, respect, and even desire. He realized that this journey was not merely about survival. It was about learning, about yielding, about discovering the life that had chosen him as much as he had stumbled into it. By the end of the second day, he understood that he was trapped, but in a way that challenged him, intrigued him, and slowly began to change him from within. Weeks passed, and the cowboy's wounds had healed, but his freedom remained a memory, distant and unattainable. The three Apache women had become an unshakable part of his daily life, their presence constant, their expectations clear. He hunted with them, gathered herbs, helped tend to the small fire that sustained their camp, and watched as they moved with a grace that seemed to belong to the land itself. They laughed together, argued over trivial matters, and shared quiet moments of understanding, weaving him into their lives with a precision that left no room for doubt. He was theirs, bound by law, by ritual, and by duty. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, the eldest spoke, her voice soft but resolute. "The law that brought you here also binds you to us," she said. "You are no longer a visitor. You are our husband, and that is the life you must embrace." The words struck him like a sudden wind, leaving him breathless. Resistance felt both futile and dangerous, yet a part of him rebelled against the thought of surrendering completely to a fate chosen by others. Still, as he looked at them, at their fierce loyalty, their unyielding strength, and the quiet warmth in their eyes, he realized that the ties formed were not merely legal, but profoundly personal. That night, under a blanket of stars, the ceremony of acceptance unfolded. It was simple yet solemn, the flames of the fire dancing across their faces as they performed the sacred rites. The cowboy felt the weight of the law and the pull of the women's devotion simultaneously, and something within him shifted. He understood that he belonged here, not by chance, not by circumstance, but because the law had chosen, and in choosing, it had forged a bond that went beyond words. In the days that followed, the cowboy adjusted to his new reality. There were challenges, moments of doubt, and the struggle to reconcile his old life with the one he had been thrust into. Yet alongside the tension were moments of laughter, gentle touches, and the steady reassurance of a bond that deepened with each passing day. He began to understand that love, respect, and duty could coexist, and that the life the sacred law had written for him was rich with meaning he had never imagined. By the time the first snow dusted the plains, he had fully become part of the tribe, part of the women who had saved him, and part of a destiny that was no longer just survival. It was life, love, and an unbreakable union forged in blood, law and choice. The sacred law had claimed him, and in doing so, had given him a life far beyond what he had ever known.